demand gen folks, but honestly, attribution applies towards all disciplines of go-to-market. We'll talk through how to integrate your go-to-market systems and data and pull this off. Deepinder's going to guide us on how to map out the entire buyer's journey from website visit to close one. We'll go through some of the broad level questions first about how to think about attribution and why. Then we'll dive into Deepinder's solution for attribution with RevSure. So quick background about Deepinder. He's the founder and CEO of RevSure AI, a full funnel attribution solution. He's led product development, fundraising, and M&A at various leadership positions, raising over $200 million in equity funding and exiting multiple startups. So without further ado, let's get started with the first question. What is full funnel attribution and why should we care?
Yeah, Alan, thanks. Thanks for having me here. So full funnel attribution, what do we mean by that, right? So traditional attribution has been all about trying to figure out what is driving revenue and pipeline. What is the impact of campaigns that marketing is doing to drive revenue and pipeline? By very virtue of that, it has to be full funnel, right? So two things we mean by full funnel. One is, we capture all of the touches that are happening across the end-to-end buyer journey, from awareness to research to consideration, evaluation, to purchase and decision, right? Which essentially means from the first time a buyer might have interacted with you as an anonymous visitor. Doesn't have to be an anonymous visitor on your website, but could be an anonymous visitor on a website, on a peer review site, on a word of mouth channel, as an example, which is the dark social or the dark funnel. Can we capture that interaction and then trace the journey of that buyer across through multiple channels, not only online interactions, but offline interactions, where they're going to trade shows, webinars, field events, looking at virtual events, track all of the interactions, not just marketing interactions, but also the SDR BDR interactions. So how are they interacting with your sales teams, your SDR BDR teams, finally to when they become an opportunity and to the close one journey. Whether you have a lead-based funnel, whether you have an account-based funnel, whether you have a PLG motion, a sales-led, marketing-led, inbound or outbound-led motion, you want to be able to capture the full funnel of interactions, right? And that's what we mean by full funnel attribution.
Yeah. Makes sense. And then how about the why should we care part? My understanding is that marketing has one of the biggest budgets, so I'm assuming that's part of it.
Yeah, that's exactly. So marketing is spending a lot of dollars, but as a GTM team, right? It's a team sport, whether it's marketing, there's the SDR, BDR team, the sales, there's partner channels, you're spending a lot of money. And the only way to figure out whether your GTM spend is effective or your marketing spend is effective is to understand and attribute and quantify the impact of all of the touches in influencing the conversion of the buyer journey to pipeline and revenue, to becoming a customer. And that's why it becomes very important. Once you understand holistically, right, which is the whole theme of the relative impact of all of the touches in the journey, then you know where to spend decisions, where to reallocate spend, where to increase spend, where to decrease spend, where to stop spend. And that's very important. It impacts your ROI, it impacts your revenue growth, and it impacts your profitability.
That makes total sense. If something's not working, you definitely shut it off because that's just money going towards things that don't work.
Absolutely.
So, typically, which stages of the funnel have been historically difficult to track for B2B and why?
It's been the transitions, believe it or not. So definitely it's the dark funnel, right, which has been very difficult to track. So whether, these are word of mouth communities, podcasts, but also just like anonymous visits to your website have been traditionally very tough to track. But now with technologies like yourself, Warmly, you can kind of de-anonymize, understand what accounts are visiting. In certain cases, you can understand what persons are visiting, right? So those have been very tough to track. But also what's been tough to track is the transition between the marketing demand gen organization and the demand gen systems to the SDR BDR motion. It's a transition between motions where there's tremendous amount of blind spots and leakage. So when you hand over a lead or an account from the marketing demand gen, initiatives or growth marketing initiatives into the SDR BDR team, do you have visibility as to what interactions are happening, right? And when you go from the SDR BDR team to the sales motion, do you know what interactions are happening? Or the interaction between the sales motion and the partner motion, or the marketing motion and the partner motion, right? These transitions, these interfaces have usually been a black box because that's where you're transitioning systems from the marketing automation system, the CRM system, to the SDR, BDR outreach systems, right, to other systems. And that's where there's data loss, there's leakage, and there's blind spots.
Yeah, and the other thing is sometimes you don't know what the weight for each channel might be because 5 or 6 or maybe hundreds of touches before you finally get to a closed one. And it could have been the SDR had a great relationship with this person, but they also saw the ad. So
Yeah, and then you want to understand what is the sequence of interactions, what's the right sequence of interactions, right? Usually by the time there's an interaction in the CRM system, it's pretty late in the buyer journey, right? The buyer might be in the research phase or in the consideration phase. But what about the touches that happen, when the buyer was just, researching or just trying to understand, right, what's going on in this space, right? What about those touches? What influenced the buyer to look at you? You don't know whether it's word of mouth channels, whether it was a podcast, whether it was a visit to the website, whether it was some interaction in a trade show, right, or in a field event. You want to be able to capture that. But by the time it's in Salesforce or in your CRM system, it's too late to be really capture the true, what they call the true first touch or the true source. Yeah.
right. I think Gartner had a statistic out there that was like 70% of buying journey has been completed by the time they talk to a salesperson.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how about today? I mean, we talked about website visits, form fill drop-offs. Are there other full funnel attribution methods today? What's viable?
Yeah. So the key part today is that there are two things that have kind of helped, right? The first thing is the ability to bring data together, right? So what you're able to do now is to able to tap into as much as possible. The dark funnel is not that dark anymore, and you want to kind of keep kind of shining a light on the dark funnel as much as possible. Try to understand all of the interactions that are taking place, anonymous interactions that are taking place through your website and other channels there, right? On peer review sites like G2, etc. Right now that you have interfaces, so there's APIs that are being developed, so you can kind of capture that data, and there's de-anonymization technology to be able to do that, and then bring data together and stitch data together across the end-to-end motion, right? From your ABM tools to your sales automation tools, your CRM system, marketing automation system. The data harmonization technology now exists for you to be able to do the mapping, even though the ID in one system might not match the ID in other systems. There's data fusion and data harmonization using machine learning technologies that can bring this data together and help you stitch these journeys and shine a light on these journeys from the dark funnel to the deep funnel. That's the first thing. And the second inflection point in terms of technology is the AI to be able to learn from the data, not rules based, not opinion based attribution, not just saying first or last touch, but the AI technologies to be able to learn what is impactful, what sequence of touches have really driven conversion, what is contributing to conversion, right? And so those are the two aspects that have helped.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the harmonization piece because I feel like we all have the data. It's sitting somewhere in our systems, but we just don't have the time to stitch it all together. So having something that goes in there and then stitches it all and then harmonizes and links it all automatically, that's very powerful. So before we get into the solution, which I know RevSure is all about on how to do this exactly, can we talk a little bit about like how are people doing attribution today?
So attribution today, people do a lot, try to implement it in Salesforce or their CRM system, whatever their CRM system is, right? So they try to bring as many campaigns as possible that they have visibility to, whether that's from paid ad systems or some trade shows or some enter campaign management and campaign hierarchy in Salesforce, and do some campaign member associations. But mostly what that gets you is like a first touch or last touch orientation, but you still miss out the earlier phases of the journey. So I find a lot of teams, marketing teams, sales teams, RevOps teams, really have painful conversations, not very productive conversations. Who should get the credit, right? Hey, this lead shows, first touch that has an SDR BDR interaction, but the marketing team said, no, no, no. We know that this, from HubSpot, we know that this actually came in to our website on, 6 months earlier, right? And you kind of miss that, right? So, but people try to do it in Salesforce in some form or fashion, or in their CRM system, or they use some kind of internal BI tool to try to stitch data together. And that's usually very tough because the BI tools haven't been purpose built to be able to solve this problem. And or they use some traditional attribution vendors. But one of the problems has been it doesn't adapt to the modern GTM motion. You might have a mix of motions, PLG, ABM, etc. So traditional attribution solutions don't adapt to that.
Got it. And so let's say that someone has successfully set up the full funnel attribution and they haven't seen RevShare yet and they did it themselves. What does that look like? What does success look like?
So success looks like two things in terms of output and outcome. Output is really about you're able to capture all of the touches that are influencing. You're able to understand all of the factors, whether it's events, field events, whether it's your paid channel marketing, the different sources from which buyers are kind of learning about you. Across that, across the SDR BDR interactions, across the sale, the partner interactions, online and offline, conferences, digital, non-digital, being able to stitch that together, being able to aggregate that across multiple journeys, because statistically you want to learn not just what's happening to one lead or one account, but you want to learn what's happening across in your system, and then be able to quantify the relative impact of each touch in driving pipeline and revenue and conversions at each stage of the funnel, because different touches have different roles to play. You can't just talk about pipeline and revenue, because you might say certain touches are very good at the top of the funnel, certain touches are very good at driving conversions in the middle of the funnel. So once you're able to quantify that, then you know how to reallocate your spend, you know how to increase, where to increase spend, decrease spend, stop spend, right? That's the first thing, to maximize ROI. And then the outcome is you improve significantly your pipeline generation, improve significantly your revenue, improve your ROI, all over upwards of 20 to 25%, right? If you get it right.
Right. One of the channels that I think are pretty hard to track are often like the dark social ones. For example, we're doing this webinar right now. Maybe we'll do it'll turn into a podcast, turn into a blog post. All of these things go out there, and it's influencing the buying decision a lot. So it's really great that we're able to pull this all together.
Absolutely.
So if a revenue team were to get started today with full funnel attribution, what are like the small things that they could do?
Right. So the first thing is that they have to make sure that they have the ability to track, right, different aspects, right? So they want to be able to track all of their campaigns that they're doing on the top of the funnel. Let's say the paid campaigns, Google, Meta, LinkedIn. They want to be able to track all of the activities like webinars, blogs, etc. Set up some instrumentation on the website to be able to track, setting up the right UTM parameters, the right hyperlinks, right? Set up the ability to, to also track spending on brand awareness campaigns, their involvement in podcasts, in other, dark social communities, right? So wherever, you're thinking, you want to be able to kind of have the ability to track that, and then bring it together into one environment. And that's usually not the CRM. I feel CRM for a long time has been kind of touted as a single source of truth. I think that's a huge myth, that CRM is a single source of truth. You have, because it's always catching up, you need an objective independent layer to bring data together into one place. And that's very important, right? Even before you harmonize it, you want to make sure that all of the data is coming into one place. And it is modeled not from a CRM perspective, it is modeled from a attribution and intelligence perspective. They're two very different perspectives in that.
Yeah, because the CRM is set up in terms of accounts, contacts, deals, and like we talked about before, like by the time they filled out a form and they dropped their email off, they've identified themselves, they're already 70% through.
They always
we want to catch them even before that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Any common pitfalls before we dive into the product?
Yeah, the common pitfall, I think there are a few things. One is not to turn attribution into a way of thinking about credit and driving incentive compensation around that. Keep that as a separate exercise, because mixing attribution initiatives with an incentive, how do I kind of split credit, is always counterproductive, because that doesn't lead to team behavior. It leads to more conflict than collaboration. That's the first pitfall. The second pitfall is to make sure you're not only looking at your marketing touches, because attribution usually falls under the mandate of marketing, right? Yes, you want to quantify the impact of your marketing campaigns, but not in isolation. You want to quantify the impact of marketing campaigns in the presence of all other touches, because inherently, in orchestrating the buyer journey, you need all other touches with all of the other motions and the teams that's going on, right? So even if, so the relative impact, it has to be quantified in the context of the holistic motion and all of the touches, right? The third aspect is to not use like a traditional either first touch or last touch, right? Because you can use it contextually to be able to make certain commonsensical decisions, right? Like, what's the last touch that helped me convert, to help you orchestrate, but not to help you identify the relative impact of these touches. Because you need to have more of a multi-touch perspective, and you need to bring an approach that kind of harmonizes marketing mix and a multi-touch based approach, right? You need to understand at a high level, top down, what the causal patterns are. at the same time make it real from a bottom-up touch-based methodology. And that's what we do. But those are the common pitfalls not to fall under.
So we think about in terms of pathways, not just single things that have happened. They clicked an ad, but the path of clicking on an ad, getting a follow-up email, getting a nurture email sequence, and then coming back to a podcast, and then learning more about the company, the brand, and finally talking to the SDR. And oftentimes it's the SDR who gets the most credit because they were last touch before they
absolutely
move on to the deal stage. So let's move on to the product. Actually, would really love to see exactly how this stuff is implemented on RevSure.
Perfect. Let me start presenting. Great. I assume you can see this?
Yep.
Perfect. So you're looking at the RevSure application. And what I'll do is I'll just walk through our approach. Our approach and the product that we built, the solution really follows a framework, right? And the framework is about what we just talked about, right? The first step is really how you want to be able to integrate data from across the end-to-end GTM motion, right? So for example, in this case, this particular case, we are integrated into Salesforce, the CRM, HubSpot, marketing automation, outreach, the sales automation tool, in this case, LinkedIn, Google Ads, as well as we have a first-party website tracking, so it kind of tracks, all of the interactions that are happening. From this, you are usually able to capture both online and offline interactions as much as possible. Now, depending on your particular scenario, you might want to bring in more and more sources as much as possible. For example, you might want to bring in ABM interactions. If you are running some account-based engagements, either through 6 Sense, Rollworks, demand-based. If you're running an account-based motion or account-based engagements, you want to bring in those campaigns and those campaign engagements into your attribution framework. Usually, that gets left out. About anyone who's running ABM campaigns, 20 to 30% of the spend on the top of the funnel is actually going into ABM campaigns. You want to be able to kind of capture those interactions. You want to be able to capture things like, when buyers kind of review you on a G2, like a peer website like G2, and they're researching competitors, or they're researching you or your category, you want to be able to capture those touches. You might want to be able to capture gifting campaigns that you're doing, right? Because your SDR, either your SDR BDR teams are doing, or your sales teams are doing, or marketing teams are doing from a nurturing perspective. You might want to capture gifting campaigns. You would want to capture sales outreach campaigns. Obviously, go directly against the sources, Google Ads, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of the paid systems that you're kind of capturing, right? Because sometimes in Salesforce, you don't have all of the data, you don't have the source data. And the spend data comes from there. You want to tap into the first source of those paid systems, right? So that's the typical set. And obviously, any data enrichment that you want to do, you want to capture that. Now, there are other sources that you want to, we're adding more and more sources, like you want to capture things from communities, YouTube, podcast interactions. You want to bring that in as well. And it's something that we are also continuously adding.
Got it. This is just kind of want to call out some of these systems. So demand-based, Rollworks, 6 Sense, these are ABM type tools. These are signal tools. They tell you signals of when someone might be in the market to buy. Oftentimes when the issue is of like, is this tool actually working? Is that you can't always tie back the signal to the result. And so a tool like RevSure helps you out with that, because 6 Sense might say like, these companies are hot. They were researching your topic on third-party websites. They were reading some article on New York Times about some sort of security thing that you guys might be selling. And so they clicked onto your site, or whatever the case, they're hot for your company right now. But the problem is you're not able to attribute it to close one revenue because you didn't do this analysis. And this is something that RevSure does a really good job of.
Perfect. So once you integrate, all of this then gets harmonized, auto-harmonized into a data model. It's almost like a graph. If I just try to kind of zoom into this graph, you can see it's a graph where all the associations from the multiple systems have been brought together. Right, so you're not depending on having different systems. It's all brought together into one system. Now, how does that work? Now, once you have this graph, for example, it's bringing and connecting all the leads to the accounts, to the activities, to the campaigns, campaign members. For example, it's bringing in leads from, in this case, HubSpot and Salesforce, and all of the attributes. It's kind of brought in the GCL IDs, the UTM parameters, accounts coming in from your outreach system, Salesforce, HubSpot. It's harmonizing all of this. Activities coming from all of the systems that I talked about, right? LinkedIn, Google Ads, Salesforce, the website, outreach, campaigns coming from your paid systems, the UTM-based campaigns, referral campaigns, referring sites, etc. All of this is getting harmonized. What that allows one to do is to then stitch together, once this data is harmonized, you can then stitch together the interactions across the journey. So here I've just taken an example where you have a particular person or lead, and it's kind of stitched together all of the journeys across the funnel movements, the campaign touches, and the activities. You're seeing different interactions from search to online PPC to calls to the contact filling web forms. All of this is coming through. So all of these touch points are getting connected to each other at the most granular level.
That's crazy. So you can see the timeline, because it's not just a data frame. Like, I imagine attribution to be this data frame or this table of each row is a contact. And by the way, one thing that we might be worth mentioning is that it's the way you break down identity doesn't necessarily mean that you know who the person is. So you're actually getting anonymous visitors, and then at some point they're going to fill out a form. But until then, you're still collecting that data about what they've done and who they like, which page, how did they come in? Did they come from Google Paid? And then you hold on to this time series data throughout the life cycle of this person. One day you will tag them, but maybe not quite yet. And so that's the 70% of people that people often miss out on when they're trying to evaluate, like, where should we focus our ad spend or whatever. And so this is really cool.
Exactly. And now that you have this, you can do this at the person contact level or the visitor level, at the account level, at the opportunity level. Then not only are you able to do, once you're able to do this at the end-to-end journey, for each individual, then you can aggregate these journeys as well, right? So you're able to see, right, over the past 365 days, all the journeys from pre-lead, which is visitor, to pipeline. You want to trace the top journeys that are happening, right? And you might say, let me, and this is one of a common problem that we say, what are the journeys that started from search? Because, our search ads have been able to influence buyers to come and engage with us. What's happening with all of those that started with search? And you can just switch the view and you'll be able to see the journeys that started from search, right? And all of these journeys, the top journeys, you're able to kind of now drill into. Indirectly, what's happening from a data perspective, you're able to then analyze not only the top journeys, but also the top touch points within those journeys, right? And then you're able to say that, okay, they're different, the top touch points, and you'll be able to drill into, hey, what are those top content layers, right? What were the top emails that helped us get there in this journey and converting from a visitor to pipeline? Now, this is from a data visualization perspective. And then you start by doing the database attribution post that.
I love that. I love how you can see which journeys don't lead anywhere as well.
Exactly.
That's probably pretty important to realize, like maybe the CEO, this often happens, says that this is the best channel, we should pursue it, kind of like their pet project. And then head of marketing is like, I don't think so, but it's my opinion against yours. This is a way to definitively say which channels are good, which channels are bad.
Exactly.
Oftentimes it's the bad ones you want to focus on too.
Yep. What are the journeys that drive leakage? What are the journeys that don't drive conversion? What are the journeys that stop midway? You can kind of explore all of that here, right? Now, what's important is this is showing you the journeys aggregated. Once you've stitched the journeys together, it's showing you the journeys aggregated. But statistically, what are the top conversion points, right? That becomes important. So when Alan, you talked about it's not just one touch or the first touch or last touch, or even multi-touch. Multi-touch in it has a sequence orientation to it. So stage by stage, you have a funnel, right? From visitor to lead to MQL, pre-sale, sale, pipeline, close one. But stage by stage, the top touches and the top paths are different at each stages, right? So here, what this is kind of teasing out, it's learning. This is not opinion-based. It's learning from the data. What are the top touches that drive one from visitor or attract visitors to become leads? And this is more at the touch type level. You can get it more granular at each touch, at each activity level. I'm trying to show it at a more aggregate level, so it's just easy to consume from a visual perspective, right? So you're saying the search drives significant amount of visitors, and then there's a content interaction, there's an SDR, BDR outreach at some point, there's webinar interaction, field programs that can convert that and nurture that into a lead. But those touches are very different from the lead to MQL. The top touches in the lead to MQL journey are different. You see trade shows. You start seeing the role of each touch and the role of each touch type in driving conversions at different points of the journey, right? Because that's the most important thing. And that's what I feel that marketing always struggles with explaining what the different touches and different campaigns and campaign types have different roles at different stages of the journey. And this is teasing that out, right, in a very visual way, but more in a statistical way. It's learning, it's an AI based algorithm that is learning this.
It's like it's an adaptive system. The more data that you feed it, the more time it has to consume the data, then the better off it'll be. So if you just install the script tag, integrate your systems, it provides exponential value over time. And to your point about the leads to MQL, like there's so much stuff that happens in between there. And in marketing, oftentimes we're just making an arbitrary touch point, like milestones. First, they're gonna listen to this podcast, and they're probably gonna get to the site. But in between that is a million different things that we don't even see. But it's all time stamped. So to put this together is unbelievable amounts of work if you were to ask a human to do it, but this thing just does it automatically, it seems. Crazy.
Perfect. Now you have the basis of attribution. The reason you have the basis of attribution is two things. You've been able to quantify, you've been able to tease out and then quantify the role of each touch type in contributing to stage by stage progressions, right? You'll see that the touch type at the top of the funnel that is most effective in driving transitions and conversions is very different from the touch types at the middle of the funnel and therefore at the bottom of the funnel. You're able to understand and quantify the role as well as quantify the impact, right? And then that leads you to the attribution, right? So once you have this basis, now attribution can help you now understand. Now let's say you're trying to look at your Google ads and the impact of your Google ads, right? What this is doing is in real time tracking the full funnel, predicting and tracking the full funnel impact of your Google ads. So for each Google campaign, right, that has been brought into the system, you're able to understand the full funnel impact of the Google campaign, not just what leads got generated, but the full funnel impact across the end-to-end funnel, from leads to MQLs to sales to pipeline and close one. You can clearly see visually which Google ads or campaigns have not really driven pipeline. They've kind of played their role in the top of the funnel, but whatever they have attracted has not really generated pipeline or revenue yet. And then you can track different metrics, not just the metrics at the top of the funnel like lead volume, but you can track multiple metrics at different stages: pipeline value, pipeline ROI. We also predict the pipeline value, right? So we say that, hey, you know what? Our AI models, because we've able to understand what has been impactful historically, what's the relative impact of different touches at different stages of the funnel, we're able to project the pipeline value of each campaign. You could do this at the channel level. You could do it at the campaign level. You could just switch what level you want to analyze it at. You can add more and more metrics at different stages of the funnel. This is the first time that attribution has gone very specific in being able to understand the impact at different stages of the funnel, and then give you also, based on the quality, based on momentum, give you recommendations on where to increase spend, stop spend, or wait and watch, because you want to be able to do this as the campaigns are running, not wait till the end of the quarter, right? Not wait till the end of the campaign. You want to be able to have intelligence to tell you that, hey, can I pivot and refine campaigns as they're happening so that I can reallocate spend and get the maximum efficiency out of. And so then you can get recommendations and make decisions on to where to increase, stop, wait and watch, or decrease spend.
This is it's almost like not having this is basically flying blind, because you have no idea how you're doing, what's going on around you. And once you see this, you can't really unsee it. Like we spend a lot of time on emails. Some people others spend a lot of time on ads. And maybe if we spend a lot of time on ads, we realize like the ads didn't actually deliver as much as the emails did, but we would never know that. And we spent all that money that could have been reallocated towards better email systems. So things like that, super powerful.
Yeah. And our belief is that attribution should not just be a way to kind of measure what you did in the past. It should be a way to help you make decisions, forward-looking decisions, rather than having a rear view aspect, right? Let's have a windshield aspect, right? Let attribution help you drive forward rather than kind of just, be caught up in the justification mechanism or a reporting mechanism or a credit allocation mechanism, because you want to make better decisions for your company, for your GTM motion, for your personal goals of what you're trying to achieve within the company. And essentially what this is doing is that it's in the context of all other activities, it's helping you make better decisions on whether those are top of the funnel campaigns, middle of the funnel, or bottom of the funnel campaigns. How to kind of reallocate and how to spend.
And to your point about it, you can see what your next best course of action is based on historical data. Can we go over that piece really quickly?
Exactly. Now, the next best course of action you can do here, for example, this is telling you at the campaign level. You can also do that at the individual lead level, as an example, and I'll just bring that out. So you can actually, based on the touches that the paths, conversion paths, at every stage of the funnel, you'll be able to understand that if a particular lead or particular contact is in pre-sal or is in MQL, you'll be able to predict that what is the next best touch. Is it reaching out to an SDR motion? Is it inviting that contact to a trade show? Is it kind of sending a content email? What is the right next best touch is kind of deciphered from this path analysis, right? Because this path analysis is telling you the top converting paths and the top converting touches. So you can then orchestrate at the lead level, at the account level, what is the next best touch and the next best action to take, right? Based on this. And it kind of surfaces, I had not opened that view, but it kind of surfaces that it surfaces those recommendations automatically.
How do you orchestrate it automatically though? The recommendations I understand, but is there do you have a system set up for that?
So the way we do is we rely, because we are an ecosystem, we partner, and so what we do is we send these recommendations. These recommendations could be written back to, let's say, your sales automation tools, could be written back to your marketing automation tool, could be written back to your CRM tool, could be written back to your dialer tool, and so to be automatically sequenced. So the way we do it is we do it through integrations. We don't execute the orchestration, but we kind of send those signals and those next best action recommendations back to the execution systems, essentially. Yeah,
it's all about signal-based orchestration. Very cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
How can we make this system better? Is there anything else we're missing here or to improve it?
Yeah, so we are continuously trying to add more and more sources that we want to do, like bringing the channels like YouTube, some podcast channels, etc. So that's our constant endeavor to kind of shine a light on the dark funnel more and more. That's the first thing that we are doing. And we are increasing the sophistication and the relevancy of our recommendations. So for example, for multi-product companies, we want to give product recommendations, right? Content recommendations, more specific content and more specific product recommendations. So those are the areas that we're kind of, in our continuous improvement of our attribution.
And how about how to use Warmly with RevSure together in conjunction?
So, sorry, can you repeat that, Alan?
Oh, and how about how to use Warmly and RevSure together in conjunction?
Absolutely. So the way that Warmly and RevSure works is in two ways. It's bi-directional. So Warmly helps de-anonymize visitors on the website, right? So then that signal gets included in the RevSure attribution and in the journeys that are talked about. So you imagine being able to kind of understand the anonymous visitors as they're kind of interacting on your website and the different pages and the different interactions that they're doing. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that once we have the next best action recommendation, we send that back to Warmly so that they can kind of you can orchestrate through your orchestration technologies.
That's right. So there's the piece about Warmly, which is de-anonymizing the companies, de-anonymizing the contacts. There's various ways that Warmly does it for you. The key thing here is that, like we said before someone fills out a form, that's
Exactly.
like 5% of website visitors, and that's being a little bit generous in certain websites, actually fill out forms. And so what happens to the other 95%, right? And those 95%, they all are being tracked by RevSure's funnel analysis tool. And so if you can identify at least who the company is, and then best case scenario is who the contact is, then you can already start to do the orchestrations ahead of time before they need to fill out a form. And so you have more volume of signals coming in and people to identify and people to hit up. It's more data about how to cut up who your ICP target audience is that are in market for your tool or at certain stages in the buyer's journey that you can then trigger the next best course of action for. So
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Any other last thoughts about that, last bits of advice that demand gen folks, SDRs, go to market people should be aware of?
I think the way I think the last piece of advice on this would be that it's approach attribution with an open mind. Use technologies like use the best ecosystem technologies to be able to get you the best insights, right? Because, for example, from an attribution perspective, it has to be data oriented, no rules based oriented. It has to be able to learn from the data and has to be more forward looking. So my advice, just from a mindset perspective, and before you jump into any tool like RefSure, is to have a perspective of what is the key questions you're trying to answer using attribution, what is the scope you want to do out of attribution, what decisions you want to drive out of attribution, and what is the time frame, right? Because are you trying to wait till the end of the quarter, or you're trying to do real-time refinement? I think that perspective, having a mindset around being sure that you're using attribution for forward looking, for making to recommend decisions around what's the next best touch, where to double down on, to do more real-time refinement, and to make sure that you're using attribution in a holistic perspective in the presence of all of the touches, which drives collaboration. That's the most important mindset for any attribution initiative. So that's my suggestion on how to approach it. Yeah.
And I'd also add on to what's the cost of not doing that kind of analysis, because especially as the budget gets bigger, then there's more at stake in how you're spending your money. When it's small, it's okay, mostly just people cost. But as you need to scale and go from 1 to 3, 3 to 9, 3 to 10, then you really do need to spend a lot on marketing, paid especially too, and then see which pathways are leading to the best outcomes.
Absolutely. And we've worked with customers who have as low as from paid spend of like 250K per year to program budgets of 10, 20, 30 million dollars of marketing spend across multiple channels, right? With global field marketing teams and revenue marketing teams, performance marketing teams, growth marketing teams. And so, having an attribution mindset around this, it becomes very important, and then it kind of scales to different levels of spend. And
yeah. Awesome. Deepinder, how can people find out more about you?
Yeah, you can visit our website, refsure.ai. It's simple. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. Just type my name, Deepinder Singh Dhingra, and we'll kind of attach it in the session recording as well. And would love to chat about attribution, anything about attribution, and more importantly, how to make better decisions, because we want to help marketing make more confident decisions in an increasingly complex, GTA motion world. Yeah.
Please reach out to Deepinder to learn more about attribution. Check out RefSure if you're looking for full funnel attribution software. They're one of the best out there in the market. And reach out to them anytime. Thank you so much, Deepinder.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks.
See you.